I used to think working from home sounded like a spell that made everyone forget what I actually did. I'm Lena Alvarez, 30. A freelance accountant with a client list that doesn't leave room for naps, soap operas, or spontaneous babysitting. Numbers do not forgive missed deadlines. Neither do clients who run payroll on Christmas week. My family, though, decided long ago that my laptop was a toy. You just type, my father Victor likes to say, as if audits were diary entries. My mother Martha is kinder in tone, but worse in effect. She pats my hand and tells me how lucky I am not to commute like real workers. My older sisters, Brooke, 37, and Clara, 33, interpret all of this as a blank check to my time. They have 3 kids between them, Noah, 10, Lily, 9, and Max, 7, and a permanent invitation to my 1-bedroom apartment that I never signed. I wasn't always the designated helper. As the youngest, I grew up on faded jeans that used to be Brooke's and phones that used to be Clara's. At 16, I took a cashier job at a corner market to buy anything that hadn't been pre-owned by my bloodline. Half my paycheck still went to the family wedding flowers. Don't pay for themselves, my mother reminded me. I learned the lesson early. Being the youngest meant being grateful, and being grateful meant saying yes. This year, I planned to say something else. Back in October, my friends Tara, Jules, and Mark floated the idea of a mountain getaway right after Christmas. 5 days. Real snow. No laptops, Tara declared, wagging a mitten at me through a video call. I laughed and promised I'd try. Then I started making it real, extra hours to close books, early holiday invoices sent on time, a new ski jacket that actually keeps the wind out. For once, I liked the look of my week between Christmas and New Year's clean, cold, and mine. I kept quiet about it at home. Past experience taught me that good news becomes a group project the second I share it. I'd tell them after dinner on Christmas Eve. I decided clear, firm adult. I already have plans I rehearsed in the mirror, practicing the period at the end. Christmas Eve arrived with the usual choreography. I got to my parents' house at 4 with a bag of gifts and a chocolate tart from a bakery that requires a month's notice. The living room was a museum of our holidays, crocheted stockings, a ceramic angel whose wing I broke when I was 8, the old photo of Victor in a tinsel crown pretending he wasn't enjoying it. My mother hummed while setting the table. I arranged the gifts and tried not to check my email. Brooke and her husband Ethan came 3 hours late in a cyclone of noise, paper rustling boots, thudding children shouting, a stroller wheel squeaking. Although no one has used a stroller in years. Clara and Caleb arrived not long after, tracking snow and apologies, and more noise. Within minutes, Noah, Lily, and Max transformed the hallway into a racetrack and the sofa into a trampoline. I poured myself sparkling water and did a quiet inventory of fragile objects. At the table, conversation flowed in the direction it always does. Brooke's office politics, Clara's PTA battles, Ethan's fantasy football near misses. Victor asked Caleb how the new manager was working out. Martha urged the children to try roasted carrots in her sing-song voice that means do it or else. My life didn't enter the orbit. I waited for a lull. I didn't find one. Work going okay? Martha finally asked, eyes on the ham. It is, I said, and seized the opening. I actually have. Perfect, Brooke said brightly, setting down her phone. Then you're free. It took a second for the sentence to land. I'm... What? Free? Brooke repeated like she was confirming a delivery window. We're flying to Maui tomorrow. Early. Like early. She grinned at the kids who were busy rearranging napkin rings into a tower. It's going to be amazing. Martha clapped, delighted. Victor raised his glass. Clara squealed. Ethan and Caleb exchanged the smug pre-vacation smile of men whose bags were already in the car. That's great, I said. When are you leaving? It felt polite to ask. It also bought me time. 6 a.m., Clara chirped. We'll swing by your place at 5:30 to drop the kids. They've already packed say bye to Auntie Lena, guys. 3 small hands waved in accidental unison. My stomach didn't drop so much as lean over a balcony. You're dropping them at my place, I repeated. Because sometimes echoing a sentence is the only way to confirm it exists. Brooke nodded, already buttering a roll. You work from home. It's easier for you. There it was, the line that turned my calendar into a free-for-all. I looked around the table to see if anyone else heard how that sounded. Victor was telling Ethan which beach had less tourist nonsense. Martha was adjusting the angel centerpiece. Clara was scrolling through a packing list app and announcing items as if narrating our fates: sunscreen, goggles, chargers, granola bars. I wasn't asked, I said, calmer than I felt. We're asking now. Brooke answered cheerful. Consider this official. Official. As if my apartment were a municipal building and my time a public utility. I watched Lily flip a teaspoon into a cup, delighting at the ping. Noah had commandeered the TV remote and was negotiating movie options with Max using logic that would impress a lawyer. The kids are good kids. None of this is their fault. I reminded myself of that as my pulse tried to climb out of my wrist. I already have plans, I said. The line I'd rehearsed sounded smaller in the wild. Victor frowned, attention finally sliding my way. What plans? Personal ones, I answered, made in advance. Brooke laughed, not unkindly, as if she were correcting a child who had mispronounced a word. Lena, we've booked everything. It's Christmas. Be a team player. A team player. I thought about the hours I'd stretched over weekends, the clients I'd shepherded through year-end chaos, the quiet purchase of a lift pass I'd looked at once a day, like a secret. I thought about the jacket hanging on my closet door at home, the new gloves, the sunscreen still in its box. Martha's voice softened to the tone that had guided me through childhood apologies. Honey, it's only a week. They love staying with you. They love staying with me because I let them bake at 10 p.m. and build blanket forts, I said, nearly smiling despite myself. But I didn't plan to host a camp between holidays. Silence arrived and sat down with us. Clara's tapping stopped. Victor set his glass down and aligned it with the placemat like a pilot lining up a runway. Brooke broke the stillness. 5:30, she said, as if finalizing a car service pickup. We'll bring snacks. I felt something quiet inside me choose a side. I placed my napkin on the table, smoothing a crease that wasn't there, and took one breath, then another. I could picture the mountains waiting where the horizon meets the road, bright and cold and indifferent. I could also picture my doorknob turning at dawn, 3 kids in pajamas on my welcome mat, my jacket still on the hanger. I looked up, found Brooke's eyes, and chose my sentence. No, the word didn't boom. It didn't crack like thunder. It arrived quietly and refused to move. For a breath, the dining room froze around it. The clink of flatware paused. The angel centerpiece stared in ceramic disbelief. Even the radiator seemed to hold its hiss. Brooke blinked. No. What? No, I won't take the kids tomorrow. Or this week. I kept my voice even. I already have plans. Victor's eyebrow climbed the way it used to when I was 10 and asked if dessert could come before vegetables. What plans, he asked, as if the category Lena's life were a spreadsheet he could audit on demand. Plans I made in advance, I said. Personal. Clara's smile thinned. We've booked everything. Flights, hotel, rental car. She ticked each item like a prosecutor building a case. You can work from anywhere. It's easier for you. Ethan leaned back, lacing his fingers over his stomach. Come on, Lena. It's 1 week. Be a team player. I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Just not on your team this time. A small gasp, almost delicate, slipped out of Martha. Honey, your sisters never asked for much. I let my eyes rest on Martha's. They ask every weekend. That's not fair, Clara shot back. We always ask. You inform, I said. You text the plan and add a smiley face. That isn't asking. Noah had switched from negotiating movies to building a wall of coasters. Lily was teaching Max a cup rhythm that ended with both of them giggling. The children were oblivious to the room's barometric pressure drop, maybe because they are children, maybe because they have learned adults speak a language of weather fronts. I glanced at them and reminded myself again that none of this was their fault. Brooke exhaled through her nose. We're leaving at 6. We'll swing by at 5:30. You won't even have to get dressed. I won't be there, I said. The air thinned. Victor put his glass down carefully. Enough he said that single-syllable verdict he'd used my entire childhood. Your sisters have responsibilities. They deserve a break. You live alone and type. You can manage. Dad, I said softly. I don't type. I run audits, reconcile accounts, submit filings. I have deadlines. I meet clients who depend on me, and projects I've moved to finish early so I could take a break of my own. Martha reached for my hand across the table, her fingers papery warm. You're so good with them, she said. They adore you. I adore them too, I answered and felt a crack of ache. But I'm not their parent. Silence pressed again heavier this time. Brooke broke it with a tight laugh. Listen to yourself. Over 1 week, we're talking about a few dinners, some bedtime stories, and bath time, and breakfasts and snacks every hour, and sibling arbitration, and the part where someone gets bored right when I'm on a client call, I said. In my 1-bedroom apartment, where the bedroom becomes a campground and I sleep on an air mattress that leaks. Clara shifted in her chair, eyes bright with frustration. We can leave them at Mom and Dad's, she said almost to herself, then glanced at Martha. Right, Martha hesitated, the briefest flinch. Victor didn't. We're going to Maui, he said, as if the island itself were party to a contract. I felt something in me settle like a coin reaching the bottom of a jar. Then you'll need another plan, I said. A sitter, a neighbor, a rotation between both sets of grandparents, or you postpone. Brooke's chair scraped. Postpone, her voice sharpened, because you decided to be difficult. Because you decided for me, I said. Martha's tone changed, the softness left. Family helps family, she said. We raised you, we fed you, we're parents, I said gently. That's what parents do. Victor's jaw tightened. You're ungrateful. There it was, the incantation. I felt it pass through me and fade an old spell that had finally lost its power. I'm drawing a boundary, I said. You can dislike it. That doesn't make it ungrateful. Clara's lower lip wobbled. The kids will be crushed. They'll be disappointed, I said. Kids survive disappointment when the adults are honest with them. Ethan straightened, adopting the reasonable tone of a man who thinks tone itself is solution. What if we hired someone to come help you at your place, he offered. Split the load. You're still assuming my place is the drop zone, I said. It isn't. Brooke leaned in elbows on the table. We need this, she said, and there it was, the part they didn't say out loud until they were cornered. We're exhausted. We're drowning. You of all people know how hard it's been this year. I do, I said, and I meant it. You also need to ask, and hear no when the answer is no. Victor pushed his chair back, the sound loud as a gavel. If you walk out on this family tonight, don't expect to walk back in. Martha flinched. Victor, it's fine, I said. It was not fine, but it was clear. I folded my napkin and set it on the table. I'm going home. Brooke's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. Clara wiped at her eyes. Lena, please. I'm not available, I said. I won't be at my apartment in the morning. Don't bring the kids. I stood. The room lurched into motion. Martha rose halfway as if to block the door. Victor muttered a curse I hadn't heard since my teenage years. Ethan and Caleb exchanged a look that said, Women, am I right? Brooke started listing sunk costs, non-refundable deposits, prepaid excursions, the Sunrise Whale Watch that had sold out in October, as if money owed to a tour company could turn my no to yes. Say goodnight to Aunt Lena. Martha told the children, her voice too bright. The kids, confused, dutiful, shuffled over. Noah hugged me with the full force of a 10-year-old who still believes hugging solves things. Lily pressed a sticky cheek to mine. Max whispered, Can we make brownies when you come over? We'll see, I said, because there are lies that protect and truths that wound, and I didn't have the heart to hand him a wound. I put on my coat. Victor's parting shot, selfish, landed behind me like a shoe thrown after a cat. I walked out into the cold. My apartment felt like a person who'd been waiting up. I locked the door, leaned my forehead against the wood, and let my hands tremble for 10 seconds. Then I did what numbers have trained me to do. I made a list. Pack. Confirm rideshare to the meeting point. Email clients. Until Jan 2. Urgent matters by SMS only. Note for the door. The last item lingered in my mind like a dare. I had already said no. I had already walked out. But I knew my family's strategy: bulldoze insist it arrive. If the door stayed silent, it would be treated like an invitation. I found a thick black marker and a pad of neon paper, the kind you use when you can't risk being missed. I wrote slowly, editing as I went, careful with every line the way I am careful with ledgers. Do not bring the children here. I said no at dinner, and I mean it. I will be away with friends until next Sunday. My home and time are not default childcare. Please do not contact me this week. Lena. I read it twice. It was firm without being cruel, clear without theatrics. Still, I felt the old fear nibble. What if this is too much? Then I pictured my front door at dawn, 3 sleepy faces and a dozen assumptions. I taped the note to the eye level of an adult who refuses to look up. Packing took less time than the debate in my head. Base layers, the jacket. I was absurdly proud of gloves, beanie, thermal socks, the lift pass tucked into a zip pocket like a secret. A paperback novel I'd attempted 3 times and never finished because responsibility always knocked at page 40. Toothbrush charger sunscreen. I left the laptop on my desk, its lid closed like a line drawn, my phone lit with vibrations. I didn't invite Brooke, then Clara, then Martha, then Victor. Texts stacked like falling dominoes. Call me now. This is ridiculous. Think about your family. We're coming in the morning. I put the phone in airplane mode and dropped it in my bag. The quiet that followed was not silence, it was relief. Sleep came in thin layers, interrupted by the memory of faces at a table and by a sensation I couldn't name. Something like grief, something like freedom. When my alarm sounded at 4:30, the city was still blue with winter. I showered, dressed, and made coffee in the dark. The apartment felt different in that hour, like a place I shared with a person I was still becoming. Before leaving, I paused at the door and laid my palm on the note, as if I could charge it with resolve. The elevator smelled faintly of oranges. In the lobby, Mr. Patel, the overnight concierge, looked up from a crossword. Early start. Ms. Alvarez, road trip, I said. He noticed the bag, the jacket. Mountains, I said, and tried the word on my tongue. It tasted like clean air. Outside, the rideshare idled exhaust curling into the cold. The driver, a woman about my age with a knitted cap pulled low, helped me with the bag. Airport, she asked. Meeting point, I said, and gave her the hotel where Tara had talked the desk manager into letting us use the lobby as a rendezvous. The city drifted by dark windows, one coffee shop already blinking awake a runner in a reflective vest, carving steam into the air. Tara was pacing the lobby with 2 paper cups when I arrived. There she is, she said, passing me coffee like a relay baton. How'd it go? I blew on the lid, like a weather system. Thunder, lightning, possible hail. Jules, seated on a suitcase, grinned. But you made it. I made it, I said. The words felt both small and enormous. Mark came in from the cold, carrying a bag of breakfast sandwiches. I assume none of you ate, he said, in the tone of a man who has learned the most rebellious act is feeding your friends. We loaded the car skis bags a cooler. Tara insisted on blankets Jules claimed were for vibes, and the map Mark had printed because he doesn't trust apps to understand mountains. As we pulled away, I glanced back half expecting to see Brooke's SUV slide into view like a shark fin. It didn't. The city stayed where it belonged behind us. At the edge of town, my phone still on airplane mode rattled from some internal tremor, scheduled notifications casting one last net. I set it deeper in the bag. Plans, not problems, Tara said as if reading my mind. That's the motto. Is that our motto? Jules asked. It is now, Mark said. We merged onto the highway. The sky yawned into a pale ribbon over the horizon. Snowbanks rose beside the road like folded quilts. I thought of the note on my door. I thought of 3 pairs of pajamas, a stack of assumptions, a habit as old as I was. I thought of what it means to be kind, and what it means to be clear, and whether you can be both. Brooke's voice, all those years of it, tried to narrate selfish, difficult, ungrateful. I turned the volume down in my head. Numbers have rules, so it turns out to hearts. You balance what comes in and what goes out. You close the books at year's end. You carry forward what matters and write off what doesn't. The highway tilted north and the land opened. In the distance, the mountains showed their outlines, blue-gray patient, not requiring anything from me except arrival. I wrapped both hands around the warm paper cup and breathed. Ahead, the day was waiting. Behind the door to my apartment held a square of neon that said no, so the person inside could say yes to something else. We drove toward the line where sky meets snow, and I let the road do what roads do lead. The highway unspooled into white, and by the time we reached the lodge, the morning had tuned itself to silver. Pines wore their frost like epaulets. The air bit my teeth when I grinned. Check-in was a blur of key cards and carpet patterns. Tara conducted us like an orchestra skis to the storage room bags to rooms meet back in 20 with sunscreen actually on your face, Mark. That means you. Jules opened the balcony door and whooped. Cold rushed in and threw itself at the curtains. I set my duffel on the bed, smoothed the quilt with a palm, and stood in that quiet hotel room that didn't know anything about my family. The window framed a slope sliced by chairlifts, little mouths of metal moving steadily up the mountain. It felt like watching breath itself, up, down, up, down. My phone sat where I had put it airplane mode, a sleeping animal. I didn't touch it. On the first run, I remembered how to trust my knees. The slope was a courteous green, the snow a polite crust that let edges bite. Mark went first knees soft. Tara carved precise S's like calligraphy. Jules made joyful chaos and yelled, "Watch me not die," at intervals that kept us all honest. I fell once and laughed at the sky. At lunch, we ate bowls of something hot that may have once known vegetables. The cafeteria buzz wrapped us the particular winter chorus of boots squeaking trays, clacking, a child wailing because gravity won again. Tara, cheeks sun pink, leaned in. "So, how's the boundary?" "Upright," I said, gesturing with a plastic spoon. "Balanced, occasionally wobbly." "You don't have to turn your phone on," she said. "I know." I thought of the note taped to my door of Brooke's thumbs firing texts into the void of my mother pacing. "But I will. After we ski. I don't want their weather in my snow." We skied until our thighs accused us of cruelty. Back at the lodge, I showered and stood in a towel, staring at the phone on the nightstand like it might jump. There's a moment accountants know when you open a ledger that's been avoided. It's better to look. Numbers never get kinder in the dark. I sat on the bed, pressed the side button, and brought the world back. The screen convulsed calls, stacked like bricks, messages blooming into a scroll. Brooke 8 missed calls Clara. 6 Mom 11 to 11 Demp Ethan. Caleb. Group thread explosions. Family in caps. Urgent. Answer now. I opened Brooke first. "We're at your door. The kids are freezing. Answer your phone." "Lena, this isn't funny. We can't take them to the airport. You're being impossible. Open the door." My stomach gave a single hard punch. I scrolled. "Clara, they're crying. They don't understand why you're not here. If you don't answer in 5 minutes, we're leaving them with the concierge. This is cruel." "Mom, Lena Marie, shame on you. We raised you better than this. Your father's blood pressure is up." "Open the door. Open the door. Open the door." "Victor, when you calm down and act like a grown woman, call me." "We are not missing Maui because you want attention." Ethan, helpful as a memo. "We left snacks in a bag on your mat." Caleb, earnest. "We'll reimburse you for groceries this week." I stared at the avalanche until the words blurred into rectangles. Then I read the timeline. The first messages were 5:36 a.m., the last clustered around 6:10. They had gone to my building, seen the note, tried the knob anyway, pleaded, scolded, threatened logistics. And then if their silence signaled what I thought it did, they took the children away. To whom? To where? A porch somewhere, a grandparent, a neighbor pressed into duty by proximity. The image of 3 pajamas on my hallway carpet tried to wedge itself under my ribs. Another message blinked. I'd missed it in the flood. Mr. Patel from the building's general line, timestamp 6:25. "Ms. Alvarez, your family was here with children. They read your note. They have left. I will keep an eye on your door. Safe travels." Something unclenched. Not relief exactly. Something like confirmation. I breathed out slowly and put the phone on my knee like it might think about running. Tara knocked and came in without waiting. She caught my face, my hands still a little clawed around air. "Well, they went," I said. "They brought them. They left. They're furious. I'm the villain in their version." Tara sat beside me so our shoulders made a small wall. "We can build you a better villain cape," she said. "Something velvet. With pockets." I laughed a short, grateful bark. "They said the kids were crying." "They probably were," she said. "Because grown-ups put them in a story they didn't write." "Which is on the grown-ups." "I feel terrible," I said. "You feel human," she corrected gently. "You can feel terrible and still be right." I turned the phone back to airplane mode. The quiet returned like a tide coming into smooth footprints. For the rest of the day, I skied as if my bones were a syllabus and trusting edges. At dinner, we demolished pizzas and argued about whether pineapple is fruit or treason. In the hot tub, we hissed as our cold bodies negotiated with heat. Jules announced we were boiling like tortellini, and a stranger across the bubble snorted into his beer. But grief traveled with joy, the way a shadow travels with a person. On the second day, while we rode the lift through air that glittered, I told Tara about the hand-me-downs, about half paychecks at 16, about being so good with them. Said in a tone that meant useful. She didn't interrupt. She didn't fix. She listened like people do when they know holding a story is the work. On the third morning, a text slipped through before I hit airplane mode. It was from Noah. Somehow, a photograph of a lopsided snowman and a caption, "He misses you." My throat startled. I saved the picture and turned the phone off again and whispered, "I miss you too, buddy," to a room that couldn't deliver the message. By the fourth day, my thighs were a protest movement, and we negotiated with hot chocolate. At night, I read the paperback past page 40. The plot wasn't complicated. A woman learned exactly how much of her life belonged to her, and then refused to give any more of it away without thinking. On the fifth morning, we packed, because the thing about a trip is it wants to be finite, so the rest of your life will notice it. We drove back with the gear rattling like applause in the trunk. When the city appeared, I felt both taller and transparent, like a person made of new glass. In my lobby, Mr. Patel looked up quickly and stood. "Ms. Alvarez," he said. "All well." "All well," I said. He hesitated, rare for him. "Your parents came by twice, early in the week and then yesterday. They asked if you had returned. I told them no. The note was removed. By them." "Yes." He studied my face with a fatherly concern I sometimes wished on Victor. "Do you want me to keep a list of who is not to be buzzed up?" "Not yet," I said, "but thank you." Upstairs, the door looked ordinary without neon. The rectangle of tape residue was a pale shadow on the paint-proof that a boundary had stood there and done its work. Inside the apartment had the faint cool of a room that missed its person. I set my bags down and walked a small loop, checking plant straightening mail. Greeting the chair that held the coat I never wore this week because I wore the good one. I was halfway through unpacking when the hallway filled with voices I could pick out of a stadium. The timing had a theatricality to it, like the next scene had been cued precisely. 3 knocks, the middle one impatient. I looked through the peephole and saw all 4 of them Martha with a manila folder clutched like a prayer book, Victor jaw set, Brooke in airport athleisure hair scraped into a ponytail of war, Clara blinking too fast. I measured my breath like I measure columns. I opened the door. "Hi," I said. Martha didn't do greetings. "How could you?" she asked, holding up the manila folder. "No, my notes, smoothed and tucked inside plastic like evidence. You humiliated us. Your father and I canceled our trip because of your temper. We lost thousands." Brooke stepped in with the speed of a person who has practiced statements in the car. "We were at the airport with 3 kids and no childcare because you decided this." She jabbed toward my apartment. "Toward my entire life mattered more than your family." Clara already had tears. They sat in her eyes like coins. They asked for you every night. Do you know what that felt like? I let them empty it all. I have learned you can't talk into a storm. You let it blow past, and then you check what's left standing. When the words finally thinned, I asked, "Did you read the whole note?" 4 faces, varying degrees of anger and confusion. "The bottom," I said. Brooke looked at Martha's plastic-sleeved evidence and skimmed, then rolled her eyes like she'd found a typo. "We read it. I wrote." I said and kept my voice level that my home and time are not default childcare. "I asked you not to contact me this week. I told you I would be away until Sunday." Victor's scoff was visible. "You think a piece of paper changes what family means?" "No," I said. "The paper didn't change it. Your behavior did." Martha sagged against the accusation as if it were a wall. "We made a mistake," she said quickly. Tripping over the word, "we like it might break." Then almost instantly she recovered the old footing. "But you overreacted. We are your parents." "You are," I said, "which is why I'm asking you to respect me. That starts with asking, not assigning." Clara stepped forward, palms up, her softness weaponized by habit. "We thought you liked a time with them. You're so good at it." "I do like it," I said, and my voice betrayed me by being tender. "Once in a while. When I say yes, when it doesn't cost me my work, my sleep, my space. Liking them doesn't make me a solution to every problem you don't plan for." Brooke's anger found a sharper register. "Say it plainly then. You don't want to help your family." I want a family that asks instead of assumes, I said. I want a family that believes work done at a laptop is work. I want a family that teaches kids that when someone says no, it means no, even if you don't like it. Victor's eyes flicked to the open living room behind me. "Let us in," he said, as if the geography would change the argument. "No," I said with the same small word I had chosen at dinner. "We can talk here." He took a step forward anyway. Old reflexes woke in my spine. "Mr. Patel knows not to buzz anyone up without my permission," I added. It was only partly true, but truth had done enough heavy lifting. It could have a prop. For a long beat, the hallway breathed with us. A neighbor's door opened-closed at the far end. Somewhere a dog objected to a mail slot. Martha's voice came back a size smaller. "Lena, please. We can do better. Just don't shut us out." Something inside me tilted like a picture frame finding level. "Doing better starts with this," I said, and lifted my hand between us, palm outward. Not a stop, not quite, but a sign. "From now on, if you need help, you ask. If I say no, you accept it without making me the villain. You don't arrive unannounced with children at dawn. You don't turn my home into your solution." Brooke's mouth made a line that wanted to be a fight. "And if we mess up, then I say it again," I said, and I end the conversation. Clara wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. "The kids miss you," she whispered, like a card she wasn't sure she was allowed to play. "I miss them," I said. "That's the worst part." Silence stretched thinner now, less hostile. I could see them doing the human math, summing what they'd always taken, subtracting what had just been removed from their reach, wondering if the equation of our family had room for this new constant. Victor broke first. "We're not the enemy," he said, but it lacked heat. "I know I said, but you've been acting like I'm equipment." He looked down at his shoes as if they might supply a better argument and found none. I took a breath that found the bottom of my lungs. "I'm going to rest," I said. "We're done tonight." Martha reached out as if to touch my cheek. I gave her the smallest lean back, not unkind, just true. She let her hand fall. Brooke gathered old indignation around her like a sweater. Clara gathered her coat. Victor nodded once, a stiff hinge. They turned toward the elevator. Martha looked back at the last second eyes damp. "Please call me," she said. "When you're ready." "When I'm ready," I echoed. The elevator arrived, doors opening with the polite sigh of a machine that has no stake in family dynamics. They stepped in. The doors closed. The hallway gave me back to myself. I went inside, locked the deadbolt, and stood with my forehead against the cool wood until my breath matched the quiet of the room. Then I called downstairs. "Mr. Patel." "Yes, Ms. Alvarez." "Please don't buzz up any visitors without checking with me first. Especially family." "Of course," he said, and in his voice I heard a kind of guardrail click into place. I made tea, I didn't drink, and sat on the couch with the new jacket still on the back of a chair like a flag of a country I'd just established. My phone vibrated once more before I silenced at Noah's snowman photo, that ridiculous, triumphant carrot smile. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Plans. Not problems, Tara had said. Maybe both can exist, I thought. Maybe the plan is to stop treating myself as the solution to problems other people create. Outside, the city returned to its noises. Inside, my apartment learned my shape again. I put the phone face down and let the dark window hold me like a reflection that wouldn't argue. January settled like fresh paint, bright for a day, then part of the room. My apartment learned my routines again. Kettle at 7, inbox at 8, spreadsheet rhythms that felt like a language my body remembered better than sleep. The jacket from the trip hung on the chair like a small flag I'd planted in myself. The first week was quiet, in the way city quiet can be radiators ticking a neighbor's dog commenting on the mail. I raised 2 clients' rates and no one argued. I bought a real office chair that didn't complain when I leaned back to think. I started running the river path on Tuesdays, the cold making a metronome in my lungs. On Fridays, Tara came over with takeout, and we checked each other's boundaries like people compare scars tenderly with pride. Family found side doors. A cousin I hadn't seen in years called warming up with weather before landing the plane. People make mistakes. You know your parents are getting older. An aunt left a voicemail that managed to say forgive 5 ways without using the word sorry once. I let the messages accumulate like dust on high shelves visible if you look up easy not to. Online old photos of me appeared with captions that understood performance more than love. Miss this girl. Families are forever. In one, I'm 6 and holding a sparkler with both hands like a torch. The comments collected like coins. I closed the app. On a Thursday, a courier delivered a box that smelled like a florist and a department store had argued, and both won. The card said, "From all of us." Let's start over. The bag inside cost more than my rent when I was 22. I called the courier company back and sent it to my parents' address with a short note. Not ready. Please don't send gifts. February scraped by on gray skates. Work was good in the modest moral way of finished columns and reconciled ledgers. I put Noah's lopsided snowman photo on the edge of my monitor. Some mornings I said hi to it without meaning to. It didn't answer, which was the point. On my birthday in March, we went to a tiny place with 12 tables and a chef who talked about tomatoes like they were his grandchildren. Jules brought a paper crown. I wore it for 2 minutes and then used it to prop the wobbly table leg. We toasted to unlearning and to properly engineered office chairs. When I got home, Mr. Patel handed me a package. I didn't open it. In the morning, I sent it back with the same note and a thank you to the concierge for being a human guardrail. Weeks feathered into each other. The apartment's shadow moved across the wall at different angles, and I remembered that seasons keep their own accounting. One afternoon, during what I call the 2 o'clock fog, an email arrived from Brooke Anders with a subject line that made me sit up. I was wrong. I let it sit for an hour because some doors should be opened with clean hands. Then I clicked. It was long. It did not sound like a lawyer. It did not sound like a grenade. It started with "I, not you." I assumed. I minimized your work. I used family like a trump card. I scared the kids that morning because I didn't plan and didn't want to face the cost of my choices. I am sorry. No, but... She wrote about Maui in a tone that made the island sound like a witness, not an accomplice. She wrote about the word no and how she trained her children to hear it until she didn't like where it landed. She wrote that they'd been talking about Christmas at every Sunday dinner since, and it turned her stomach now to hear their justifications out loud. She didn't ask me to fix it. She asked what repair might look like from my side. I read it twice. On the third time, my throat did that small ache humans do when something heavy is set down by someone else for once. I didn't answer that day. I made tea and watered the plants and went for a run that turned into a walk because I wanted to look at other people's faces and remember that nearly all of them were carrying something I couldn't see. That night, I drafted a reply and let it sleep. In the morning, I sent this, "Thank you for the apology. I'm not ready to rejoin the group yet. If we do rebuild, these are the non-negotiables. You ask, you do not assign. No is a complete sentence with no penalties. My work is work. You type jokes, retire permanently. No dawn surprises at my door, ever. If I agree to childcare, it is scheduled finite and rare. No triangulating through relatives or social media. If someone slips, we name it and stop the interaction for the day. If you and Mom and Dad and Clara can accept these in writing, we can talk about a short coffee in a public place. No kids the first time. I will reach out when I'm ready. Please don't contact me again until then." I stared at the cursor like it might vote. Then I hit send and watched the email leave my screen without asking for permission. The reply took a day, then another. Silence can be a punishment or a practice. This time, it was a practice. On the third afternoon, a message arrived from Brooke that said simply, "We accept. I'll talk to them. Take all the time you need. No calendar link. No itinerary. No photo attachments. Just a sentence that knew its size." I didn't cry. I made a sandwich. I answered 3 client emails. I took the crown wedge out from under the table leg and tightened the screw with a coin. At sunset, I walked to the river and watched the ice loosen its grip. The water underneath looked patient, like it had understood all along that surfaces are temporary. April dressed the trees and the sidewalks remembered how to be warm. One Saturday, I passed a playground and without meaning to counted heads that weren't mine to count. On a bench, an older couple shared a thermos and a crossword. The man laughed and handed the woman the pen, admitting he'd been wrong about a 6-letter word. She didn't make it a spectacle. She just took the pen and filled the blank. Back home, I pulled a fresh sheet of paper from the drawer and rewrote my list, not because it had changed, but because I had. The handwriting looked steadier. I folded it and taped it inside the kitchen cabinet next to the mugs where I would see it every morning without needing to perform it for anyone. A week later, an envelope slid under my door. No return address, the script old-fashioned. Inside was a postcard of a snowman drawn in crayon carrot triumphant. No words. Just 3 initials in the corner stacked like a secret NLM. I held it and felt the complicated mercy of missing people you love while refusing to disappear inside them. I didn't text. I didn't email. I put the postcard on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tiny mountain and made a pan of brownies. I wrapped half and labeled the container for Tara because joy like grief is better shared. When the timer dinged, I took the brownies out and let them cool on the stove. The apartment smelled like childhood without the part where I owed anyone for it. I poured milk into a glass I liked and sat at the table that no longer wobbled. Boundaries, I decided, aren't walls. They're doors with locks and names on the bells. They're the way you make a house you can live in. And sometimes if everyone learns how to knock the way you make a home. I cut a square from the pan, tasted chocolate and heat, and felt the quiet move through the room like good weather. My phone sat face down unurgent. Outside the city remembered to green. Inside I remembered to stay. When I'm ready, I'll send an email with a time and a place and a table that doesn't wobble. Maybe we'll start with coffee and the smallest stories. Maybe we'll end with laughter neither of us is balancing on. Or maybe we won't. Either way, the door is mine to open, and that finally is enough. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.